thank you to everyone that has been able to join and listen in today, whether you're listening in on Zoom, on our Facebook live stream, or on Clubhouse. We are incredibly excited to start our semester with today's event. So when I started the economics mentorship program at NYU, one of the central goals of that group was providing a platform for students to learn more about cutting edge industry trends or global opportunity straight from industry leaders. It is incredibly humbling that we are able to hear from the one and only Mr. Narayana Murthy today, the founder of Infosys, a leading luminary of tech innovation and renowned philanthropist. From borrowing 10,000 rupees, around 140 USD, when Infosys was first founded, it has grown into a 936 billion INR or 13 billion USD company. Mr. Murthy is a reminder to us all that keeping long-term vision can take you anywhere. Today, we will discuss his own journey to success and provide insight into his perspective on the current Indian economy, the impact of COVID, the future of tech in India, among other things. We are also incredibly honored that facilitating this conversation today is Professor Arun Sundararajan, who is the Harold Price Professor of Entrepreneurship at NYU, author of the best-selling book, The Sharing Economy, and renowned expert on digital technologies, having spoken at the European Parliament, United Nations, and more. Incredibly grateful to have his unique insight into the topics of discussion today. So let's get started. Mr. Murthy, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to start by delving first into your early background and motivations. From my own study of leaders across the world, I know that every big thing starts with a clear vision. In reading about you, I know you were working at Putney Computer Systems before you jumped into being an entrepreneur. What inspired you to pursue entrepreneurship in the early days or even your entrepreneurial work later in your career?
First of all, Nitya, thanks for this opportunity. I am an admirer of the higher education system of the US. Both my children went there to do their undergraduate and graduate studies. The higher education system, in my opinion, in the US is one of the enduring competitive advantages. Professor Murthy Subramaniam is a very good, actually a close friend of mine. I had the opportunity to deliver the commencement address here for the MBA students probably 10 years ago. So this place is special for me. Now let me get back to your question. My aspiration came from my belief that the only way a country like India can solve the problem of poverty is by creating jobs with good income. This task of creating more and more jobs and solving the problem of poverty can only be done by entrepreneurs in the private sector and not the government. I believe that the task of the government is to create an environment that encourages these entrepreneurs to create more and more better and better paying jobs by removing any and every hurdle for them. I learned this important lesson in 1970, long before you were born, Nitya, when I was working in Paris. And when I had discussions with experts in the ideologies of the left, the right, and the center at Sorbonne, these ideas were strengthened by visits to Western European cities and also by my experiences during the hitchhiking trip I did from Paris to Mysore, when I took about 11 and a half months on the road in Western Europe, in Eastern Europe, including the Soviet Union, the Middle East, Iran, and Afghanistan during the 70s. Thanks to an unpleasant brush with the police for no fault of mine in a place called Nish in Bulgaria, I was transformed from a confused leftist to a determined, compassionate capitalist. This has been my inspiration, Nitya.
So I want to transition to, you know, you filled a variety of roles successfully over the course of your career, whether it's co-founder, CEO, philanthropist, mentor. How would you like to be remembered? What is the legacy that you hope to leave in the years ahead?
You know, Nitya, I have been taught by my parents and teachers that the most important attribute for a human being to operate successfully in a team is to demonstrate fairness and to use data and facts to decide every transaction. That is why I have practiced the adage, in God we trust, everybody else brings data to the table. As you know, fairness is based on the golden rule, do unto others what you want them to do unto you in a given situation. The good thing about being fair is that even the person who loses a transaction will leave the table with a sense of hope. That is, he or she will realize that he or she has the chance of winning the next transaction if the data on his or her side were correct and proper. In most cases, I have seen that the person will not go with ill will towards me. So I would like to be known, I would like my epitaph to be, here lies a person who tried to be fair in every transaction with everybody. This is what I have practiced, whether I was an entrepreneur or I was a CEO or the chairman of the association or a philanthropist, whatever, father, you know, a brother, son, etc., etc.
Mhm. I want to go deeper into the concept of fairness you just brought up. So, you know, when you consider the journey of India from a socialist economy, India is increasingly capitalistic each passing year. There's the infamous story of in the 80s, when you first started, it took Infosys, I believe it was a month to gain access to a phone. Yet the rise of capitalism.
No. It was generally it was 7 years, but
oh wow,
in our case, we were lucky to get it in a year.
It was 7 years to get a phone back then?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, then this question holds all the more truth.
Talk to your grandfather, he will tell you.
Yeah, I definitely will after this call. He's in Bangalore as well.
Yeah.
So the rise of capitalism comes with its own challenges. You have been one of the strongest pioneers of responsible capitalism in India from the inception of Infosys. What does that look like to you today?
Well, during the 1980s, actually 1981, when that's not really correct. I tried to become an entrepreneur first in 1976. I failed. That company did not take off. Then I realized why I failed. And then the second attempt I did was in 1981. Then the factor conditions were primarily friction to business in India. There were no VCs in India at that time. Banks did not even understand what software was. It took 7 years to get a telephone connection.
Wow.
There was no current account convertibility. So I had to get approval from the central bank to get hard currency for my travel to go to the US to meet customers. Even if I was going for 1 day, that approval took 15 days. It would take 3 years and 15 visits to Delhi to get a license to import a computer worth $100,000.
Wow.
Thanks to the liberalization effort of Sri Narasimha Rao, the then PM, and Dr. Manmohan Singh, the then finance minister, all these restrictions disappeared like snow on a sunny morning. If I try to become an entrepreneur today, I will face several challenges bigger than what I faced in 1981. First is generating an idea to create a differentiated business value proposition compared to existing players in today's extremely crowded and highly competitive global market. There are so many competing ideas coming from almost every country. Unlike the early 80s, when there were not that many countries which had taken to entrepreneurship. Second, entrepreneurship, at least in the way that you and I know. Second, second would be scaling up businesses is perhaps the biggest challenge for today's high-tech entrepreneurs. Maintaining the nimble soul of a small enterprise in the body of a large organization is a huge challenge. Scaling up employees and customers in today's highly competitive market is another big challenge. Third is the ability to raise huge amounts of capital from venture capitalists in competition with global entrepreneurs. That's a big challenge. There is a mindset of spray and pray among many VCs today. Entrepreneurs have gotten to the mindset of big money from the venture capitalists, right, but then realize that not every entrepreneur can be successful in this. Fourth, the idea of software services is not very attractive today for VCs. And services businesses do not obtain a good valuation. So entrepreneurs have to move on to product ideas for the global market. When I say entrepreneurs from India, this is a big problem. There is not even one Indian product that has yet reached $1 billion in revenue. There is hardly any experience of producing world-class products in India. Talent for high-tech software product management simply does not exist in our country. The fifth challenge we have, Nitya, is there is a tremendous shortage of software development professionals who have a proactive mindset for problem solving using software products in India. Talent is indeed a very serious problem. The sixth challenge that we have is, thanks to the opening up of borders, your competition in the marketplace is not just Indian competitors, but global competitors from any nations. So therefore, I have tremendous respect for entrepreneurs of today because their challenge is much bigger than the challenge that I faced in 1981.
Well, I guess my next question would be, if those are the challenges, what are the solutions, right? So as India continues to move forward, I know Prime Minister Modi had a plan that he released sometime this past year, where he said that he expects the Indian economy to grow from around 2.9 trillion to $5 trillion in the next 4 years. So under that estimation, there's parts of the Indian economy that are expected to nearly double. So I guess I have a two-part question. Where do you see that growth being concentrated, if at all? And what can young people in the US do to participate, benefit, and contribute to that growth?
Sure. We have a very ambitious target particularly since COVID-19 has decelerated our economy. This year, we are likely to go to a contraction of 7.7%. For us to reach the figure of $5 trillion from the current, whatever, 2.7 or 2.6 trillion dollars, maybe 2.7, we have to grow by at least 60%. That means we have to accelerate growth in every sector and not just in one. Therefore, we are looking at an annual GDP growth rate of 12 to 13%. This has to come not just from increasing the growth rate in the domestic sector, but we have to grow rapidly in our exports too. In the domestic sector, our focus will have to be on manufacturing and agriculture, because we already have a large contribution from services, and most of that is low end, and it's very difficult to enhance the growth rate there. The industry and the government will have to work together to overcome the problems of finance and skill shortage that I talked about earlier. The government may have to adopt Keynesian prescription to stimulate the economy. I'm glad that in day 4 yesterday's budget, the finance minister has done exactly that. Spending, creating a budget that is much more heavily influenced towards spending. Banks will have to become more aggressive in lending. Associations will have to work with companies to start training programs for fresh entrants to the job and for reskilling workers. Our education system will have to modify their curriculum to bring proactive solution mindset and to provide industry-ready skills. Our companies will have to work on improving our work productivity so that we become attractive for companies from the developed nations to use India as a manufacturing base for both the Indian domestic sector as well as for the domestic sector in those countries. And perhaps on the export front, the government will have to remove all impediments and attract more and more companies from the developed nations to use India as a manufacturing base for the global bazaar. Now, you asked me a second question. What can you young people in the US do today to support, contribute, and benefit from this growth? My view has always been that a small percentage of competent Indians should go abroad, become productive, peaceful, harmonious, fully integrated, and model citizens of those societies, in your case, the United States, and raise the image of India. I'm very happy that Indians in the US, like you and Professor Soundararaj and Murthy Subramaniam, etc., have done exactly that. We in India are very grateful to every one of you. What I would request you is that please strive to be the most respected and most admired citizen group in the United States. This will raise the image of India amongst your classmates, your co-workers, and amongst your community people. And therefore, that, in my opinion, is the first and the most important duty of every NRI to US. No, you can contribute to India in many ways. First of all, you can become entrepreneurs in India. I mean, you can be, your company can be registered in the US, the market can be US, but the development part can be in India. And thereby you create lots of jobs for youngsters in India. That's one important way that you people can contribute. The second way you can contribute is by helping our educational institutions in upgrading their skills by exchange of ideas and scientists between the US and India. When you people do your graduate studies, your PhD, and all of that, then you can help in improving the quality of education in our higher education institutions. You can participate in online teaching. First of all, at well-known institutions, once you have done your PhD, or if you have completed your undergraduate degree, you have taken up a job, then there is one way that you can do, you can still add value, and that is you can participate in online teaching of less fortunate children in India during your free time. You can also donate used rural schools and colleges. For example, in the US today, most books are e-books. So therefore, those of you who still have printed books, books on paper, you can donate it to rural schools in India. In fact, one of the youngsters that was somewhat inspired by my talk 5-6 years ago, I don't remember. He started exactly this. Now, I don't know how that initiative is going. Next, you can also donate small amounts of money to organizations like Akshaya Patra, which feeds nutritious lunch to over 1.8 million children in 2,500 schools in 15 states every day. This is the largest lunch program in the world. Next, you can, during your free time, you can contribute to organizations like Teach for India, which is modeled on Teach for America. Right. You can participate in teaching for Pratham and other such organizations that are working hard to add value to our education system. But let me say that your biggest contribution will be to conduct yourself as model citizens of your society and gain the respect for India, of course, for yourself and for India amongst everybody that comes across you. They must say, we need more Indians to come to America because they contribute well, their productivity is higher, they are peaceful people, they are well-educated people, they are good people, they are respected people, etc. That's what I would say.
Well, I hope that's something I can live up to, and I'm trying to every day. I want to hand the mic over to Professor Arun for the next portion of the conference. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Nithya. I mean, congratulations on organizing such a fabulous event.
Extraordinary.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Murthy, for taking the time. I mean, I think it's incredibly generous of you to sort of provide your perspective to these students, and you're going to shape a lot of young minds today. I mean, you've raised so many interesting and important points already. I mean, I completely agree with Indians having to be model citizens in the United States. I've myself been very heartened to see the growing influence of NRIs in in the US over the last 20 years. When I came, we had leadership from people like Murthy in academia, but now, top tech companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM, Adobe, also in the government, in the press. I was also very struck by your mantra of sort of practice fairness and bring your data and facts. I think in the artificial intelligence community, the convergence of these two things is happening. whereas we are building these systems based on data, we are starting to question their fairness. But um, so I just wanted to turn back to the an issue that you raised very briefly of like, that we are going through this unprecedented, or what we feel is an unprecedented shock because of COVID.
Yeah.
And, you are personally, of course, no stranger to uncertainty. Infosys was started during a time of economic isolation, foreign reserve uncertainty. You yourself quit a job to take the leap.
Yeah.
And, when I talk to the students today, they feel like this is like a once in a, I don't know, this something like this has never happened before. But you have seen many ups and downs in the economy, from the 70s, the oil shocks, collapse of the Soviet ecosystem. So can you put this into perspective for us? I mean, how significant do you feel this COVID shock is? I mean, and what advice do you have for students?
Well, COVID has impacted the entire world, whether it is the US or UK or Europe or Africa, South America, Asia. Every one of the countries has been impacted very severely. First of all, there have been huge job losses in India. In the worst situation, we had 122 million people, and most of them in the unorganized sector lose their jobs. Our GDP growth rate will come down by 7.78% this year. The tax collection has gone down. The GST collection has gone down. The revenue growth of companies has gone down. Therefore, the profitability has gone down. There is so much focus on cost. There is so much focus on reducing expenses. At the same time, people are thinking about lots of innovations in reducing costs, in improving customer base, in reducing cycle time, and in improving quality. Because today, the disposable income in the hands of most people in the world has been reduced drastically, and as I told Nitya earlier, most governments have finally come to the Keynesian method. Your country has decided to distribute money to every citizen.
Yes.
And that's one way, certainly.
It's quite and the Republicans are doing this. This is this is even more surprising for us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's understandable. So therefore, I think this is a never before seen event. The last such event was about 100 years ago, the flu. We don't know, none of us, have seen that. So therefore, for all practical purpose, this is our first experience of a global disaster. The financial meltdown of 2008, 2009 did not impact many countries. Definitely India was not impacted, China was not impacted, and many European countries were not impacted. So I think the focus today is on providing better value for money. As I said, in reducing cost, in improving quality, in reducing cycle time, in improving profits, in bringing new growth. Therefore, all of that have a very important solution, and that is being innovative, to think outside the box, to think of things that nobody ever thought. For example, 2 years ago, very few in the world would have thought that 90% of the transaction of service-oriented companies, consulting companies, would be delivered online. We talked about in 1980, global delivery model, which in fact depended heavily on interaction amongst virtual teams, but now everybody has accepted that. Education is mostly online. Yourself, focus. You are teaching an online class. So I would say that these are some of the things. The main thing is Keynesian method from the government, but from companies, focus on innovation. And from citizens, I would say this is the time to work hard and improve our productivity. That's the best we can do. Okay. And of course, follow the discipline of social distancing, masks, and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, you raised a couple of points that sort of motivate me to come to another topic, which is the future of tech in India. And in many ways, as you just pointed out, crisis like this can accelerate ongoing change. And you also alluded to the fact that uncertainty is a time for innovation. Yeah. And so this is sort of coming back to a point that was raised earlier about India's tech sector. Silicon Valley, we know, is synonymous with disruption and innovation. And, I had this feeling 10, 12 years ago when I was involved with, your co-founder, Nandan Nilekani, on the Aadhaar project, the early stages, that India was really laying the foundations for creating an unprecedented digital society, sort of leading the world there. And, we have, of course, seen industry giants from Infosys to Flipkart, others. But we've also seen China sort of accelerate and create, Huawei, Alibaba, WeChat, now ByteDance, TikTok. I mean, some might argue in part through the judicious use of protectionist methods, So, you've already raised some excellent points about, sort of what the situation in India is that might hold us back, and that needs to be rectified, pursuing the global consumer market, capital markets limitations, talent, inbound competition. But what do you feel India can do? Or do you feel it's actually a good idea for India to pursue the goal of creating an Apple, a Google, Tesla? Should we be, as a country, pursuing this kind of wanting to create a world dominant company in consumer hardware or something else? Or do you feel the path that we're on, where, we are a hub of innovation, but not creating global companies like the US and China, is the right path?
No, I think, Professor, I believe that India should have high aspirations. India should intend to join the US, China, UK, etc., in coming out with globally valued products. India should think of creating companies like Apple, company we already have created like Amazon here, Walmart, Flipkart, which is owned by Walmart today. But I think aspirations build civilizations. Therefore, high aspirations are always very, very good. And I think that will be possible over a period of time, as long as India creates an environment which is conducive to all this. What are the things that we can do so that a few years from now, we too will have an Apple kind of company? Maybe it may be in some other area, it doesn't have to be in software. We too will invent some drugs, fundamental drugs, all of that. To do this, we have to first revamp our education system to make it more problem-solving oriented. I think that is the first challenge that we have. This will also solve the huge problem of talent shortage with the requisite mindset. Second, we have to reduce friction to business in every dimension. In fact, my suggestion is that the startups be completely shielded from the Indian bureaucracy, at least for the first 10 years. No hassle, no taxes, no factory inspectors, no customs harassment, etc., etc. In other words, these startups should not be on the radar screen of the Indian bureaucracy. In fact, as you know very well, there were two industries for which the government had not created a department at the center. And those were the two sectors of our economy which succeeded very well. The first was IT. The second was beauty. For example, in the 80s and 90s, we had so many Miss Worlds, Miss Universe, etc., etc., because there was nobody who was controlling them. Nobody saying, no, I want you to do this, I don't want you to do that, all of that. Similarly, the IT grew only because there was no ministry. Next, we have to bring policies that make the flow of domestic funds into VCs easy and frictionless. We have been fighting this issue with the government for several years now because 90% of the VC funding in the domestic sector is from abroad, mainly from the US. But we are saying, look, you have the LIC, you have retirement funds, you have pension funds and all of that. Why can't some of them be invested in the venture capital industry? That's something else. Next, we have to focus on English education and encourage starting of English medium schools. Somehow in this country, in India, there has been a mindset that says that we can show that we are smart by using our own languages rather than English, or by discarding English. My view is that, yes, our mother tongue is very important. For example, at home, we all speak Kannada. My children, right from their primary school, they took Kannada as the second language. They wrote us letters in Kannada. We conduct all home transactions in Kannada, but at the same time, all science and mathematics and technical subjects, engineering, etc., they all they have to be taught in English. That's very, very important. We have to make our cities more livable and commutable. Culturally, we have to accept that entrepreneurship is risky, and therefore we must accept that failures are as much a part of life as success, and create a social acceptance. If we did that, I think we would be in a position to create a proactive, solution oriented mindset, and that is the path to move towards an Apple or a Google, etc.
Okay. All excellent points, Mr. Murthy. I mean, education, infrastructure, English, science, and technology education. Completely agree that we need a safe harbor, sandbox for startups,
Yeah.
and incentives to redirect, pension fund LIC money to VC. Just one quick follow-up question here, and then I'll hand it back to Nitya for audience Q&A. There's been a lot of discussion here in the US about some moves that India has taken towards creating its own app store, and perhaps sort of closing, moves towards potentially closing the sort of domestic consumer tech ecosystem. I mean, is this, like the arguments are that, well, South Korea was protectionist and this led to Samsung, China has created Huawei and others. We have, you think of India in the 70s and 80s, and we moved away from that, right? I mean, is this a direction you are seeing the tech sector going in? And if so, do you think it's the right direction?
The Prime Minister has spoken about self-reliance, Atmanirbhar, or whatever that is. Now, unfortunately, that has been misinterpreted by many people down the line to meaning self-reliance by import substitution. That is an absolute path towards self-destruction. We all saw that. Nehru tried it in the 50s and middle 60s. Indira Gandhi tried it in middle 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we came to a situation when we hardly had 15 days requirement of foreign exchange.
Yes.
That is when, fortunately, Sri Narasimha Rao, probably one of the wisest prime ministers that this country has seen, made sure that we liberalized, and our growth rate went from Hindu rate of growth of 2%, 2.5% to 8, 9, 10, etc. So therefore, my belief is that if we want to improve, we have to be open-minded to learn from people who have performed better than us. We have to interact with the outside world. We have to share whatever we can with the outside world. We have to accept whatever is better. We have to increase interaction between scientists and technologies outside. We have to send our youngsters for education abroad, a certain number every year, so that they see what is happening. They acquire the good habits of the developed nations and add it to all the wonderful habits that we have. So therefore, I am a total believer in openness to new ideas, meritocracy, a system of fairness and justice, speed, imagination, and excellence in execution. So I hope that India won't close the door on these stores, Apple Store kind of stuff, because there is a lot that we have benefited from those technologies. That's my view.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand it back to Nitya to coordinate the Q&A. I think we've already seen some questions in the question box. So
Thank you, Professor. I mean, events like this are only possible with the support of everybody at NYU. So I appreciate you coming on today. And I want to go to the Q&A, guys. Upvote any questions that you want to have asked. I'm going to start with Ankit Agarwal's question first. What do you think is one skill set one should invest in today to be better prepared for the future global world?
Well, that's very clear. That's learning to learn. That's what education is all about.
Mm-hmm.
That is, see, I define learnability as the ability to extract generic inferences from specific instances and using them in new unstructured situations. That is the most important learning that we need to have. Once we learn to learn, because at the end of the day, everything in the world is changing. The only constant today is change. For us to succeed in such an environment, for us to provide solutions to the unforeseen problems, you have to have high learnability, and that high learnability will only come from learning to learn. So therefore, learning to learn is the most important thing. And that's what you're doing in the university. That's what the professor is helping you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so our next most upvoted question is from Navdeepak, and he said, extending Professor Arun's question and Mr. Murthy's answer on India creating its own Apple, is India ready for innovation, or is India already innovating? Because it seems it is still globalizing by taking ideas and creating businesses which already exist in the US and China.
No, I think in certain areas we are innovating. For example, India was the first country to think of global delivery model based on collaborative distributed development model of software development, because sometime in the 70s, I had attended a conference in Tel Aviv, and the leaders of software development said that software cannot be distributed if the team is split in two buildings. But we proved that good software can be developed even if you are oceans apart. The second thing that we put into place was 24-hour workday. We combined the prime time of the US with prime time in India, which are anywhere between 9.5 hours to 12.5 hours, and created a full 24-hour workday so that the customers benefit. We have put in a lot of resources in innovating in collaborative distributed development model. We have innovated a lot of new quality models, all of that. That's in the software area. In the area of pharmaceutical, India has scaled up very well in generic medicine, generic drugs. Mm-hmm. That again is very important because there are so many countries in the world which cannot afford the high prices of the name drugs. For example, when I went to buy my diabetes strips in the US, it costs $155 for 50 strips.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Paris, the same company, which is manufactured in Switzerland, the same company has manufactured the same stuff, and that is sold for 31 euro in Paris. 31 euro would be approximately $40. Now you have to tell me, why is that? So therefore, there will have to be countries like India which will contribute significantly to the welfare of the globe by these generic drugs. Oh, for example, as you know, it was an Indian company that produced a very cheap drug for AIDS. There were lots of opposition, there were lots of problems created. But this company said, look, when people are dying, when they have no money, what do? So I think India has innovated, but it is still not sufficient. We have to get to the front line of innovation. And that front line will only happen if we change our education system to make our children become proactive problem recognizers and solution providers. I think that is the biggest problem we have. And we have to get back the focus on English. I think once we do those two things, I think we will. It won't happen overnight. It'll take a few years, doesn't matter. So, we can do that. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's funny you bring up medicine. That's the industry in India where a lot of my family is currently working in. So I've heard a lot about this for the past few years. I want to jump to a question from Arpit. He said, what do you see the tech disruption panning out in India in the next few years? And which sectors would be the leaders that can help the country?
The reality of India is that services contributes about 56% of GDP. And it provides jobs only for about 30% of the employable population. And the per capita salary is low because most of them are in unorganized sector. These kirana shops and, vegetable vendors, etc. Our restaurant waiters, all of that. Then manufacturing contributes about 27% or so. And it employs somewhere around 28-29% of the people. Now, very interestingly, agriculture, which contributes only about 15 or 16% of our GDP, employs directly or indirectly 41-42% of the people. So therefore, our challenge is to shift people from agriculture to low-tech manufacturing and better paying services. That's exactly what China did. In 1978, they had thought out, their plan was very clear, they were deep thinkers, and they came out with producing low-tech stuff. Japan started that in late 40s. In 1990, of course, you people were all not born. Japani Malu in India meant very poor quality stuff. Then they went to some transistors. Then they went to television, etc., etc. So China took the Japanese model and they perfected it, and they went to billions of dollars of exports. Trillions of dollars of exports. So our challenge is to move people from agriculture so that fewer people are employed in agriculture. Their per capita revenue, per capita salary becomes higher. Today, as you know, the India's per capita GDP is somewhere around $1,850. Now, about the per capita GDP in agriculture is 1/3 of that, which is $600, which is less than $2 a day. That's very difficult to take care of your education, nutrition, healthcare, shelter, medicine, everything. So therefore, I would say we should look at how China did. But to do that, we have to enhance our work productivity by a huge margin. If our people have to work 12-hour days, so be it. Because we will conquer the world. That's what Vietnam is doing today. That's what South Korea did. That's what China does today. So therefore, there is a lesson from China, South Korea, Vietnam, etc. And India can indeed make the life of our people better if we work hard, if we are disciplined, if we have high aspirations, etc.
If India hopes to conquer the world, I have one last question, and it's from a special guest, my sister Shreya. If we hope to go,
What is she studying?
She's currently a senior in high school. She's going to be studying
Wonderful.
computer engineering next year at Northwestern. So very excited for her. But her question was, as an NRI who's grown up in the US, what do you think we need to keep in mind if we were to go back and hope to work in India one day?
First of all, you have to realize that we are a poor country. We have improved a lot. We have gone from $250 to whatever, $1,850. But still, when you consider the fact that you are somewhere around $60,000 per capita GDP in the US, and when you go to an environment which is $1,850, you will be confronted with a lot of problems. Getting school admission is a problem. Getting to school, commuting is a problem in cities. Then disposable income is low. Quality of education is low. Access to healthcare in rural India is low. It's not bad in urban India, but so you have to be ready to accept that you will be making those adjustments. But you will be amongst people that love you, that show affection for you, that will come to your help whenever you need, that will give you confidence, that will say, together we'll solve the problem. I was reading a book probably 30, 40 years ago, I don't remember. It's written by a Polish author. He was coming to the US from Zedang's in 1900 or something. And on the ship, everybody told him, oh, New York is fantastic. The streets of New York are paved with gold and all of that. So he says in the very first day, he says, when I landed at Ellis Island, those days people used to come through Ellis Island because there were no airports, nothing.
Right.
So he says, I learned 3 truths. One, the streets of New York were not paved with gold. Second, the streets of New York were not paved. And third, I was the person brought from Poland to pave the streets of New York. So therefore, I think you will have to have that attitude when you go to India. But there is a lot of affection. You know, I'll tell you why I say it with so much of confidence.
Yeah.
When I was a child, my father was a high school teacher. We were 8 children. So we were very poor. But I can tell you the happiness that we had, the joy that we had, the social life that we had, everybody caring for everybody else, and practicing, sharing is caring, and all of that. We never ever felt that we were short of anything.
Right.
So therefore, I think you people must have to keep that in mind.
No, my Tata party are on this call and they tell me the same about, you know, growing up in Kerala and what that was like every time we do get to go back. But on that note, we are at the end of our time. It's 11. I know, Mr. Murthy, you wanted to share something. I don't know if you still do, but I can make you now.
No, I have an excellent song. I want you people to listen to that. Now, if you allow me to do this, I just want to save that. I will play that because I tell you, this song is very important.
I will make you host.
This is a 1961 Hindi movie song. We asked our teacher, what advice do you have? So he had a LP. Those days we had LP. He had brought the LP. He put it on the LP player and played this. It is from a movie called Ganga Jamuna.
Okay.
So I will play that. Can I play now?
Yeah, Denzel, do you share the screen yet?
No, have you allowed me to share the thing?
You should be allowed, yeah.
All panelists. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. 1 minute.
This was not planned, by the way, to everybody listening. This is a surprise for all of us.
No problem. 1 minute. I want you to it won't take more than a few minutes. I just want to end it with a song. Share computer audio, please. What is all this? Oh my God. This is something you people have done something. I don't know. Does it?
We can see.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Did you hear?
Yes, we can hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
बच्चों दिखाओ चल के ये देश है तुम्हारा नेता तुम ही हो कल के इंसाफ की डगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के ये देश है तुम्हारा नेता तुम ही हो कल के दुनिया के रंज सहना और कुछ ना मुझसे कहना आगे को बढ़ते रहना सच्चाइयों के बल पे आगे को बढ़ते रहना रख दोगे एक दिन तुम संसार को बदल के रख दोगे एक दिन तुम संसार को बदल के इंसाफ की डगर पे अपने हो या पराए सबके लिए हो न्याय अपने हो या पराए सबके लिए हो न्याय देखो कदम तुम्हारा हरगिज न डगमगाए देखो कदम तुम्हारा हरगिज न डगमगाए रास्ते बड़े कठिन हैं चलना संभल संभल के रास्ते बड़े कठिन हैं चलना संभल संभल के इंसाफ की डगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के ये देश है तुम्हारा नेता तुम ही हो कल के इंसानियत के सर पे इज्जत का ताज रखना इंसानियत के सर पे इज्जत का ताज रखना तन मन की भेंट देकर भारत की लाज रखना तन मन की भेंट देकर भारत की लाज रखना जीवन नया मिलेगा अंतिम चिता में जल के जीवन नया मिलेगा अंतिम चिता में जल के इंसाफ की नगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के ये देश है तुम्हारा नेता तुम ही हो कल के इंसाफ की नगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के ये देश है तुम्हारा नेता तुम ही हो कल के
I think the important thing is in this, those of you, I mean, all of you are living in the US, your first responsibility is to the US. Become model citizen of that society, and that will bring respect to you and to India. So the song is not to say that your loyalty should be to India. It only says it is addressed to people in India. So I want you people to become the best citizens of the US, best permanent residents of the US, and then think of adding whatever value you can to India. So thank you for this opportunity. And I'm very, very happy. I generally do not lose an opportunity to address the youngsters because that is the most precious asset India has, or the world has, any country, whether it's US or India or UK, doesn't matter. So therefore, you are the hope of the US, India, whatever, wherever you go and settle down, and conduct yourself so that you're productive, you're peaceful, you're harmonious, you're innovative, you do good for that society. That's what I would say. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Take care.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
Arun and Mr. Murthy, for all the wisdom you were able to share today. We'll definitely be sending this recording of this out to whoever was unable to make it. And for the unexpected song at the end, I got a message from my dad. I'm definitely going to be playing this later. So yeah, thank you all of you. And we'll be sending the recording out soon. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Professor. Take care.
Well, thank you, sir. Of course.
Excellent. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.